Well, hello everyone. It looks like we are finally getting the Switch 2 reveal this week. After Nate the Hate, a known insider, said that it is happening on Thursday, the 16th of January this week. Every website basically came out, The Verge, Eurogamer, etc., all backing it up, saying they heard the 16th too. And when that happens, it's usually when it does go down. Normally when something doesn't pan out is when someone says something, but then no one else does. But when everyone backs it up at the exact same day, usually that's what happens. And I remember that happening with the original Switch reveal as well. Emily Rogers, who was probably the best Nintendo insider we had back in the day before she quit doing that, said it, and then everyone jumped on it, and there it was. So it does look like January 16th is the day. I believe The Verge is saying they expect it to be announced on the 15th, so the day before, which again is a very Nintendo thing, kind of dropping something 24 hours ahead of time. The infamous NX tweet with the Mario behind the curtain and everything was less than 24 hours before the reveal, so it looks like we are going to get it. It all makes sense. Funny enough, it is the same day Donkey Kong Country Returns HD drops on the Switch, which was the only thing kind of going against it being revealed this week. But I feel like that's not a huge deal because, it's a remaster that isn't one of those games where, it competes with the Switch 2 in a weird way of, why isn't this being saved for the Switch 2 as a graphical showcase kind of thing, It doesn't have any of that. It's just a remaster of a Wii turned 3DS game, so I think people who want to play it will play it, but also it doesn't really, mesh in a big way with more powerful hardware in a way that hurts it. If we, for now, want to assume this is true, which it sure seems like it's going down, then I wanted to talk about what was said to expect from it, and also give some thoughts on what I think might be the right or wrong way to do this. Obviously, if Nintendo is revealing this thing this week, it's a big deal the way they go about it. Obviously, we've had 1,000,001 leaks related to hardware, and Nate and many of these other insiders, Eurogamer as well, are kind of backing up one very specific thing that I wanted to talk about. So a lot of these posts, or a lot of these comments, are saying it is going to be a very hardware-focused reveal. I think that's very interesting because obviously that is what they did with the Switch 1. While we all were waiting for the NX, the Switch 1 was a trailer that was also used as a Super Bowl ad that they dropped in October. And yeah, an edited version of that was for the Super Bowl. And it was very good. It was a great showcase of what the system is. You see the person picking it up, playing handhelds, playing docked, showing off the Joy-Cons. And we got some glimpses of games in the background, both first party and third party. A very interesting thing about that is Nintendo did not give us any details on what those games were. I mean, even stuff that was obvious, like third party, like Skyrim, obviously that's Skyrim. Nintendo had a complete lockdown on any details of the games in that trailer. It was not allowed to be officially said to be Skyrim in that trailer, even though it obviously was. But it was a very effective trailer because it was a good mix of showing off a new concept, the Switch's hybrid nature, and also teasing some games. Teasing, oh, this is some third-party kind of stuff it could get, but also, of course, look at, there's a Mario game clearly there and stuff. We're just not talking about it yet until the big showcase next year, because that's what Nintendo did. It came out in October, that trailer, and then in January, they had their big showcase, where they went deep on games, gave the price, release date, and pre-orders opened after that. So, with the talk of this being hardware focused, I did want to talk about the pluses and minuses of that, and also what that could mean and give a prediction, because hardware focus doesn't mean nothing whatsoever game-wise, but it does mean not a deep dive. It means at most probably similar to that original Switch trailer, and at least it means nothing game-wise, right? So which route do I think Nintendo will go? Well, first off, I think it's important to note, and a lot of people have said this, the Nintendo Switch 2 is very clearly, by all leaks, and just by common sense, not like a revolutionary like hardware design. I made a video on that a long time ago that I thought Nintendo should make a very like straightforward successor that was right. Like they should make just a nice new save system. They don't need to reinvent the wheel because they have something good, and they should definitely, go for that for another generation. Maybe after that, they need to reinvent the wheel because the world will be different and they need something bold. But for now, making a better Switch is the way to go. That just has, great exclusive games, also get some solid third-party support, and then you got a great system that I believe will be another, 100 million seller. Doesn't mean it'll sell as well as the Switch 1, which just today was confirmed to be the new best-selling, game system in Japan, and recently it was also the best-selling ever in North America. So it's getting a lot of records, and it did great, and I think a good, solid successor will allow it to do extremely well, even if, it doesn't match the Switch 1 sales because those were so historic. It's going to be up there. I think it'll be a very safe seller. With that being said, that does mean that a hardware reveal is a bit tame, right? Because when the Switch was first shown, it was, hey, we've never made this hybrid console before. The Joy-Cons with these detachable controllers are new. All these different things. They were showing tabletop mode. They were even showing people slide it into like a stand or something while they were in the backseat of a car playing on Joy-Cons. The infamous rooftop party people always joked about in that trailer. All that stuff was new, and some of it was more important than others. But the point is, while the Switch, at the end of the day was really a Nintendo, portable home console hybrid, and that kind of is a straightforward concept, at the same time, it was new. And I think that going with the exact same thing does feel slightly odd because, or even something more hardware focused than that feels odd because without hyping people up about a new concept, you're kind of just left with, something that looks like a Switch. So really the games are the key differentiator of why someone, should want to buy a Switch 2. Because something with the Switch concept, guess what? People already own that because they own an original Switch. So the concept isn't really hype by itself. So with that being said, what do I think they'll do? Well, obviously there's kind of this debate going on about, when you say it's going to be hardware focused, how much does that mean? Will there be any glimpses of stuff? And so this is my prediction. So one thing that Nate did point out is that he heard that there would be a big showcase either late February, early March, because he's hearing that the system is likely to come out in May or June. In my most recent video, I actually predicted that it would come out in May. I said that's the date, or specifically the month, that I've really thought made the most sense. They've done really big things, like Tears of the Kingdom came out in May. They haven't been afraid of using that as like a big month for kind of their tentpole. So I thought that might make sense if they're coming out in the first half. He said May or June. We'll see. And he said potentially a big showcase being late February, early March. There also has been rumors about a Switch 1 Direct in like early February. So we'll have to see how that goes. Obviously, there's a Pokemon Presents that'll come out because Pokemon Day happens. So Nintendo, starting with this trailer, is going to have a rush of stuff. There will be like every month, there's very, very important stuff. And I think that's very exciting and very smart for them to stay in the news in that way. But with all that being said, I do think they need to show something software related, and there's a few interesting points that I think need brought up. So during the Switch reveal trailer, where they showed the people with the games moving around the Switch, where you saw Breath of the Wild, a glimpse of Odyssey before it was known as that, Skyrim, all that, those games, we do have it reported that those were just superimposed on there. Like the actors and stuff who had the Switch in their hands, there was no game there. That stuff was all added in post. What that means is if someone saw that trailer ahead of time or something, there would be zero evidence of, game footage there. So with the leaks and stuff being hardware focused, you could certainly have someone know about a trailer getting edited together but not know the contents of, the games to be flashed on the screen. And going back to that NX reveal, we did not. We knew about the trailer coming out. If you weren't around at that time, when we heard about, hey, you better get ready, the NX is going to be revealed tomorrow and all that, no one knew exactly what was going to be shown in terms of games that flashed on the screen while they were using it. So they were showing off the concept, but we still got a glimpse of games. I still have to believe we're going to see something because, again, with the Switch being a similar concept, or the Switch 2 being similar to Switch 1, there are some interesting things you could show. There's obviously this MouseCon rumor that has come out in a lot of the leaks, and I do think that makes sense. I mentioned that in my recent video going over the leaks, and that I kind of bought into it. It was a very Nintendo thing to do. How could we add extra functionality to the Joy-Con, which is kind of where a lot of their extra, functionality was when it came to the Switch, right? The Switch at the end of the day is kind of like a tablet that you dock, but the Joy-Con had all like the extra little bits that they really focused on in the reveal and stuff. So adding more functionality to that, a different way to play, is a very much in the Switch's DNA. So yeah, you can mention the MouseCon. The magnetic rails that have been shown. Yeah, obviously the rails will use magnets to attach the Joy-Con. They will mention that. The screen's bigger. They will mention that. You also obviously just have straight up more graphical horsepower. But all those things are a bit questionable without like any game shown. One other thing that I assume we'll finally get some confirmation on is there's been this long rumored C button, and people speculated about it being something as simple as another like menu thing, another additional home button, not directly a home button, but something to get to some other menu, to all of a sudden being some casting functionality of streaming, to all of a sudden being something to do with a camera. There have just been a million and one kind of rumors about what that could be, and that's where nothing is really firmly leaked. Like, people just kind of speculate. It's all been very iffy there. So we'll know what that is. So there's stuff to know. And what the C button does, the MouseCon, if that pans out to work the way people think, or if there's something else along with it. And who knows, maybe there is a surprise along the way. But either way you look at it, Nintendo can't really show off too much with the hardware unless there's some glimpses of games, because if they say, one thing that's exciting about the Switch 2 is it's more powerful, you kind of need to show a game in the background, or that you aren't showing anything there. The MouseCon, how can it be used in games? Well, you kind of have to have a game on a screen at some point if you want to advertise that. Basically, like anything, you kind of have to have some game showing. One thing I do think that they could show is the UI. I think that makes a lot of sense to have a flash of the UI, because the UI is something that would look immediately different. That would be a big differentiator. And on top of it being a differentiator, it's also could be something that's maybe navigatable in different ways. If you're using, just buttoning over, maybe it could have pointer controls if the Joy-Cons are, unattached. It could also maybe have MouseCon support. You can move around. Like, that could be a thing where they could glimpse a bunch of different stuff, and it would look different. So I think that's something that we'll see, because I do think a little glimpse of the UI, that's something that could be in the background that could very easily be shown. But I do think they have to show some stuff software-wise to really showcase the hardware. So very easily you could show a Switch 1 game. But if you just show Switch 1 games and just say, well, we're focusing on the hardware, but backwards compatibility is kind of a feature built into the hardware, so we're going to give you, like, you could see Breath of the Wild running on or whatever. Well, that just kind of looks like the Switch, right? If the system looks similar to the Switch and then here's an old game running, it doesn't really tell you something different. And I think that would be a mistake. You don't want the system to just look like a Switch Pro, because obviously that's what it physically is going to look like. Next gen games that are differentiators are really what tells you it's a new system that you should be excited for. So, if you do not remember, that Switch 1 reveal trailer had 6 games that were shown on the screen. Again, they did not confirm the titles. They were very cagey on all this. But what we now know they were is Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, Super Mario Odyssey, Skyrim, Splatoon 2, NBA 2K, and Breath of the Wild. Breath of the Wild was heavily marketed at E3 prior and at other locations, of course, because we saw it as Zelda Wii U. Before Splatoon 2, we did not know it was 2. Obviously, Splatoon, at first glance, if you just show someone a couple seconds of it, you can't really tell if it's a sequel or not. And that was kind of a reveal at the Switch event that, yeah, this is straight up Splatoon 2. And then, of course, Super Mario Odyssey, that was like the big new game, and it could not be mistaken for a previous game. And then, of course, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, which was pretty clear that it was not a completely original Mario Kart. It was very clearly, a version of Mario Kart 8. So I still think when Nintendo does this hardware-focused, trailer for Switch 2, I do think we're going to get a similar number of games to that. And I mean, you could kind of speculate, some comparisons. I mean, Breath of the Wild was a game previously marketed that ended up cross-gen. Metroid Prime 4 would fit perfect for that. Why not show Metroid Prime 4 superimposed on that screen when someone's picking it up or something? Or if you do have a segment where you mention, oh, it was more powerful or whatever, and you want to show it, maybe there is some sort of, you just show it on a big screen and mention that it's at a higher resolution or whatever. Something very simpler, because again, that's showcasing hardware by kind of just mentioning software, oh, this is an example of a game that, is enhanced. And that's selling the hardware, but giving just a slight glimpse of software to do so. So I think that fits in with the hardware focus. Again, third parties, I do think it makes sense to have a couple third parties glimpse, even if it's mainly going to be a hardware trailer, copying that Switch 1 trailer and having a couple ones that make sense there. Nate, during his video where he was giving all this information, mentioned that the Metal Gear Solid 3 remake is coming to Switch 2. Again, a great one, a classic IP. It's a very graphically impressive remake. You show a quick glimpse while people are moving the hardware around. That kind of just tells people, oh yeah, current gen only graphical showpieces are going to make their way to the system. That alone, just a quick glimpse of games like that, say a lot. Even if you are mainly doing a hardware focused thing, you could just quickly have a quick cut of something like that, and it says a lot about the system. So I do think we'll get stuff like that. Obviously, the big question is, with us seeing Mario Kart 8 Deluxe and Super Mario Odyssey in that Switch trailer, if they do have any quick examples of footage of games without going deep into them, will we see either of those? Will we see a 3D Mario? Will we see a Mario Kart? Nate predicted that Mario Kart would be a launch game, but did not completely put his reputation on it the same way he's saying January 16th is the reveal, reporting that. This was seeming a little bit of speculation and maybe some rumblings, but not definitively. If there is a launch game, Nintendo showing a little glimpse of it in that way, I could see it. I also think that Mario Kart has a higher chance of being a launch game. I was always someone on the train that they would have a different big first party game, and Mario Kart would make more sense as the holiday game or the game that comes out a little later. But if Metroid Prime 4 ends up being a cross-gen launch game, that's a big single player thing. And if you had something like Mario Kart at the same time, that's actually a really good pairing, I think. Metroid Prime 4 and Mario Kart is kind of, you get the best version of Metroid Prime, and you get a new, next-gen only Mario Kart. That's a pretty good pairing of single-player, multiplayer. So it kind of covers both. But we'll have to wait and see there, obviously. But yes, I do think that we'll get a glimpse of something like that if Nintendo was a big first-party game, seeing just hints of it, again, in that same way where it's just kind of superimposed onto either a TV screen or the handheld screen. But there is the chance that it is full-blown hardware, and we don't get glimpses of those games. And like I said, I'm doing a prediction that we will get those. We'll see glimpses of stuff with the hardware, because I feel like you need to show software to show these hardware features. You want to show power, you got to show games. You want to show new features, you want to show a mouse con, you want to show, this and that. You have to kind of show them being utilized on something, and that's what games are for. So I'm predicting that. But if they went gameless entirely, I do want to say I think that's a big mistake, because, again, the Switch 2 seems very similar, and that's not going to be the most hype thing, just physically seeing a thing that we kind of have a pretty good guess what it looks like because of so many leaks. It's more than a guess. But in addition to that, I do remember the PS4 reveal. I'm going to go to the PS4, not just a Nintendo example and not even the most recent PlayStation example, but all the way back in the PS4. I remember feeling like they had a super successful reveal. It was in February 2013. I remember it well. I was very excited for it. And I was very impressed. They really kind of deep dived on like what the hardware would be capable of. It was a really cool showing. And they showed a lot of stuff, a lot of games, tech demos, everything like that. And I thought it went very well. The feedback was pretty positive. But do you know what happened if you don't remember or weren't around paying attention to game news back then? At that PS4 reveal, they did not show the hardware. They literally had a live press conference showcasing, new Infamous, new Killzone, in development stuff, tech demos, all this, third parties from, big ones to indies, and not a single glimpse of the console itself. Obviously, that was strange, and they did not repeat it with the PS5. We saw the hardware, and other companies haven't really done that either. But I just want to say that I thought that PlayStation reveal was actually very successful for the PS4 because seeing games and what the hardware is capable of is more impactful than just seeing like a box, right? So yeah, if a Switch 2 looks pretty similar to a Switch, it just looks bigger with, maybe a mouse con functionality built in, maybe a bigger screen, right? All those things that have been leaked, that's cool. But at the end of the day, I'd rather see games and not see the hardware, PS4 style, than see hardware and no games. Because, again, we kind of have portable hardware that's hybrid in nature already in our own homes. So just seeing that concept, even if it has a few extra features, I think only goes so far. But either way, I'm going to go on record saying I do think we'll see glimpses of software within the trailer, but I do think we're going to have to, analyze these little 2-second clips and all this as they quickly cut between stuff and all that. I think that's the direction we're going to end up going with this, but we will still see some things. I do think we'll see some games. I think no games is a stretch and a very odd thing to do for a console reveal, especially for Nintendo, who is more of they're like the most games-focused first-party hardware manufacturer out there. They believe on selling games based off of exclusives more than anyone else. So the idea of not flashing any of their IP strength on the screen and just seeing a turned off Switch or something, that seems very weird. So I don't think they'll do that. I have a feeling the people who've heard about it being hardware focused are hearing something similar to what we know the Switch 1 was. And also, as I said, the games could be kind of snuck in there late. And I do want to add one other thing is that while this might not be true because of the sources definitely iffy, Paul Gale, who has been doing kind of, some insider stuff posts here and there for a long time. I remember back in the Wii U hearing his name before the Wii U was the Wii U, back in the Project Cafe days, and he's had some big misses. But he does say that he heard from a third-party source that they had a trailer complete for the reveal, but it will be shown in its entirety after Thursday, meaning what I'm talking about, maybe a quick glimpse of a third-party game, but that company is waiting for the Switch to be announced to show it, but because they're only going to have a couple seconds in Nintendo's actual video, we'll see the entire trailer separately uploaded, which is another factor to look at here. After this thing drops, it is possible that we get a flood of third parties willing to put the logo in their trailer, willing to maybe say they're excited about it, talk about it. We might have a lot of interviews and stuff to go through. It'd be good for me. would be happy to go through, make videos over third parties giving us tidbits and stuff like that. I get excited for that stuff. So it's possible we get just a flood of info. But also, again, remember, with the Switch 1, when that trailer dropped, Nintendo literally had everything NDA'd, to the point where Bethesda couldn't say Skyrim for Switch until the January event. So I really hope that doesn't happen, because that would be really weak. I know Nintendo can be really secretive. Obviously, we're kind of in this whole situation because of how kind of tight-lipped they've been. But I'm really hoping that if Nintendo is light on software and we don't see anything right away, we have to wait for late February, early March if Nate is right, and we get a big showcase then. That would be cool and all, but I hope at least third parties are allowed to speak a little bit about working with the hardware and stuff like that. Because yeah, if Nintendo doesn't show games at all during this thing, and then it's also does not let third parties still interview about it or anything, that would be really brutal for us to wait this long, get a 3-minute trailer, and then have radio silence for 2 months or something. That would be really rough. So hopefully it doesn't go that way. So yeah, that's my prediction right now. The TLDR is basically, I think we'll have them go over every little feature. Yeah, the system has a bigger screen. Yeah, it has magnetic rail Joy-Cons. Maybe it has this mouse-con mode. Here's what the C button does. You know, all this and that. Yeah, it's more powerful, blah, blah, blah. I think we'll have them, you know, kind of show that, flash that on screen. But at the same time, I do think we'll be getting little glimpses of games throughout, because I just can't imagine showing hardware without anything like that. And then I expect us to get kind of info here and there from developers as we wait. But either way, the one thing I can say I'm very excited about is like I said, I really like this idea that Nintendo kind of has a mountain of information that still is going to kind of kick off with this, right? If we get a trailer this week, and then we have things like Pokemon Presents, things like a Switch 1 Direct, a big Switch 2 massive showcase, maybe like January 2017 style, that gives us like everything. And then if the system does launch in May, June, I'm hoping for May. Like I said, I've been predicting May for a while. It's been what I thought was a real sweet spot. I hope it lands there. That would still be a pretty good, consistent, you know, run. I mean, if it did come out in May, we're only 4 months away from launch at that point, 5. And so if there's like presentations kind of like every month for different stuff, you know, there's a good run of info here, and it'll be a pretty exciting time. But I do think that excitement will be dampened a bit if this trailer has like no software footage in it and it's just hardware that's mostly been leaked. I think people would react a little tame to that. Not necessarily the hype you want for a console reveal, especially one that we waited so long for. So I hope Nintendo is aware enough to give people just enough to chew on. Tease them a little bit. Make them want to come back for more. Don't get them upset where you just give them nothing. And I'm optimistic. I do think we're going to see something. And one thing about this kind of, you know, these leaks is we do have expectations set for hardware, but also about like the date. If we are going to see this thing on January 16th and people are talking about it being mainly hardware focused, if we do get glimpses of a new game in the background on the screen or something, like, that's going to be like a pop-off moment for a lot, right? I definitely plan on doing a reaction and all that as well. And that's going to make people jump if all of a sudden you're kind of like wondering if you're going to see something, and then boom, you actually get a glimpse of like the new Mario Kart or something. That'll be really cool. But we will see what happens very soon. And if you are excited about the Switch 2 just like I am and want to be along for the ride following, you know, all these crazy bits of news and rumors, I will be here. I plan to cover it from now on going forward. So if you enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time.